You had this typology in your book about the different types of preppers. What are these 5 different types of preppers that you talk about?
So I split the group into 3 different parts: people, politics, people, perils, and politics. We touched a little bit about the politics just before this. So now let's go into the people. The people were the best part of the whole book. I loved talking to individuals, hearing their stories, or reading about their stories of other people that had interviewed them, because I just found it fascinating. And I wanted to know if there was a typology that I could use, not just for America or the West, but it was international. It could go to any country and be utilized. And I found it was exceptionally robust. I could take these and move it to Taiwan or Australia or Israel or any other country. And so here's the 5 typologies. And what a typology is basically this. The typology is basically a heuristic, and it's a rule of thumb. It doesn't have to be exceptionally rigid and exact. And you don't have to be just one of these typologies. Some people start in one way and then they branch out to others. So let me go over the 5. The first one's the easiest to understand. Most people know this one. It's the homesteaders. It doesn't matter where you're living at. It's your small plot of land, your backyard garden, whatever. But your motivations are basically health, food insecurity, pestilence, maybe fear of contamination. And we've seen this throughout history. You could go all the way back to the Peloponnesian War when they worried about health. There was a plague in that first city that wiped out 25% of the population of Athens. People had pustules on their bodies that damaged their appendages, their genitals. 600 years later, we had smallpox that reduced the Roman Empire by 10 to 30%. So homesteaders have been around for a long time. They basically just want to have their little plot of stuff and be able to feed themselves, feed their family, be robust. So that's homesteaders in a nutshell.
And would you say that homesteaders, that one kind of transcends political lines, doesn't it?
It does. It's one of the most acceptable to left of center preppers that I've seen by far. So you can be an urban garden individual, in the outskirts of Brooklyn or Chicago, and you can be someone who's right of center, who's living in Wyoming and has 100 head of cattle as well. It's very robust politically. Absolutely, yes.
So homesteaders was the first one, and I got to say I wasn't always a homesteader, but I find myself becoming one. I see preparedness as a journey from the urban dependency kind of progressively more so to the rural environment, which is why I view this typology as more of phases, almost kind of like stages.
Yes.
And everybody kind of enters in at a different point, perhaps. But okay, so what's the second group?
So the second group are the ones that doomsday preppers kind of made infamous, and that's the Sentinels. The Sentinels it's very simple. They're the gun group. So the Sentinels are motivated by governments of tyranny, of subjugation, of war, of genocide. It's too much government, or the exact opposite, too little government. They're also motivated by a combination of too much and too little, this concept of anarcho-tyranny. Anarcho-tyranny is the concept that the state chooses not to protect you, but does not allow you to protect yourself. Right. So the Sentinels are motivated by all 3 of those. It really freaks them out.
Get a taste of that, come to Canada. We are the quintessential anarcho-tyrannical society.
I've seen that. I've heard that before. I hear it about Europe as well, all over Europe, Germany, Britain, Ireland now, etc. Yes. So Sentinels are the gun group, and this is the one that has kind of been exported to the world in a negative sense. And so when I talk to people that are living in Denmark or Sweden or other countries, they're like, "Oh, don't call me a prepper. Prepper, that's the American gun group. That's the individualist. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be associated with that. Don't use that label on me, prepper. But I'm a homesteader. I'm a one of these other ones." Okay, understandable. So, but the thing is that the Sentinels, again, all 5 of these groups, none of these are crazy things. These things have happened before. So there is violence in America. There was a survey in 2024 of Americans, and it found that 61% believed that a world war would occur in the next 5 to 10 years. And 2/3 of them thought that nuclear weapons would be used. More than 10% of Americans, when they were surveyed, thought America would lose this conflict. They did a comparable survey in the United Kingdom. They found that 21% thought that the Western nations would not win that war. So there's a lot of pessimism out there, and it drives this. I need to protect myself at the base level possible. Grab my modern day of a sword. I have my gun now, and I'm gonna stay here on my homestead, or my home is my castle, and I'm going to defend it. So, and we've also seen, unfortunately, we've seen genocides that have been prosecuted by states. After Stalin, after Lenin took power after World War One, or in World War One, and then afterwards they had a civil war, and then he did gulags and famines. They lost 25 million Russians. They lost 1.4 million Russians in World War One. They lost 25 million Russians in the civil war and the famine afterwards. So people have a right to be scared in a martial sense and be able to want to defend themselves in a martial sense as well. Those are the sentinels. And there's a psychological thing too. So people, they look at the prepping and they're like, oh my gosh, there's so much that I have to do. I have to learn how to shoot a gun. I have to be able to raise crops. I need to do animal husbandry. I need to be able to shoe a horse, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, so they start somewhere. And so these journeys are all different. There's usually a motivating event in their life that happens, or it's something they've done culturally for a long time. But it's one of those two. It's either something they've been doing since birth because they were raised in the American West or in a rural area, so they've been shooting squirrels since their childhood, or an event happens that says, hey, I need to do something. But it starts their preparedness journey, and they usually do branch out into others as they move along. Just like you said, you're moving along in a homesteading. This is very common. No, most folks don't just stay in one.
The government kind of wants a monopoly of force. They don't want people to defend themselves. So there's a stigma against self-defense in the first place, which is not a big deal in the United States. But I think a lot of people, they have a hard time wrapping their heads around the gun thing because maybe some people take it a little bit too far. I think the Sentinel is kind of the fun part of prepping, It's the shoot 'em up. It's the exciting, the action component, right?
Yep.
So what about the third group?
So the third group are the ones that are my favorite because I think they're the furthest along. So the reason I say that is this. World War II, in an American sense, and really in a Western sense, really changed the face of the globe. So before World War II, and for 6,000 years prior to that, we were still rather tribal. Yes, we had a few people that are out in the Wild West, and they hitched up their wagons, and they went out and they got their 40 acres and a mule in the middle of nowhere, Kansas. Okay, I got that. But they were still a collective for the most part, and tribalism, collectivism has worked for thousands of years for humans to protect their tribe, to protect their area. You can go all around the American West. You can go all the way all through Europe and other areas. Europe has got more castles than anywhere else. Why do they have castles? Because they attack each other all the time. So we're moving back to this, and the interdependence are the ones that are most community oriented, and that's kind of where we need to end up at the very end of this preparedness journey. We need to end up back realizing that we can't do it on our own. We have to depend upon our community, upon our neighbors, upon our locality, etc.
So the third group is called interdependence?
Interdependent. The interdependent are the third group. And they're mutually dependent. They're supportive of one another. They're the neighbor you definitely want to have when the winter storm happens, when the earthquake happens, when the tornado happens, when the hurricane happens, because they have their stuff together. They have the knowledge, they have the skills, and they're just friendly individuals. They're the far more open preppers. They say, I'm a prepper, raise their hand proudly, and they say, I want to help you to be a prepared person as well. I want to help you increase your resilience as well, and not just you, but the whole community. They're usually not driven by a single disaster category like the other ones are, but they practice basically generalized resilience. So they're like, hey, I want to go and increase my medical skills because I might have to use my medical skills if there's a car accident, if my friend's kid falls off the trampoline, if a tornado strikes and someone's trapped in their home and they've got a broken leg. So they look at disasters as very multifaceted, and they say, what skills can I develop that will help out in numerous different types of things? And they also really like to rehearse as well. So they'll go out and they'll join the CERT teams, the community emergency response teams. They may go out and volunteer to help out with FEMA or be a part-time FEMA associate and go to Jamaica and learn skills there and then come back to their community. They may work at their volunteer fire department, et cetera, but they're building those communal skills, those generalized resilience skills, and they kind of focus on this more ecology of things more than engineering. They're trying not to develop a better mousetrap, but they recognize that sometimes that 1 in 1,000-year flood happens and they want to be ready for that thing. So very generalistic, but very open to folks. Like I said, they're the ones that are the furthest along in the prepper journey.
So they're not necessarily living in a community. They're just community oriented.
Correct. They can be both. There are definitely communities that try to be more resilient writ large. We see that in Japan, for example. So I'll give another international example. There's an active volcano in Japan called Sakurajima, and it's about 10 miles from the city of Kagoshima. Well, this volcano erupts about 500 to 1,000 times per year. So it kicks out a lot of pyroclastic ash on a regular basis, and that ash comes downwind and kind of rains down on Kagoshima. And so what the people do is they all have this cultural practice that they go out and when they see ash falling, they go and they sweep it up or they remove it. They have removal practices. They have these community attitudes, and there's a 90% compliance among the populace for removing this ash when it comes down because it protects the entirety of their jurisdiction. So that's an example, a non-American example of people coming together that are interdependent in nature to protect the community from a realized threat. And we see people in the homesteaders do this as well. The regenerative agriculture crowd, where they want to make the soil healthier again. They want to bring back actual healthy living dirt that's good and has worms in it and bugs, et cetera, for the holistic health of their, posterity as well. Yeah, we see these crossovers all the time as well. Yes.
What is the fourth group?
So the fourth group are interesting. The fourth group are the NOAAs. They are the bunker group. So very easy to understand. And I do have a delineation here in the NOAA group for them. If you just have a bunker or panic room, I don't consider you to be a resilient citizen because in me, the citizenship is just as much as important as the resiliency part. Because again, I'm pushing this community-based typology of things. So you can have a bunker, but you have to have a bunker that's part of a community. So it's not just for you. So a great example of that, Dr. Bradley Garrett again, a few months ago, he visited Vivos X Point in South Dakota. And he said, when this thing first kicked off, it was just a whole bunch of folks, just buying their $10,000, $20,000 bunker, whatever it was. And they got it. And it was kind of very individualistic. But he goes, now they're just a few steps away from having like a homeowners association. And so it's an actual, no kidding, small village is now developing. So I would consider those folks to be NOAAs. But the NOAAs do truly look at the very large, apocalyptic type events. So they started out as years and years and years ago, they were the ones that basically built the castles. And in today's day and age, these bunker folks are the ones that build things for extreme civil strife, a nuclear strike, things along those lines. But the real biggies, those are the NOAAs.
There could be homesteading elements, there could be sentinel elements, but the defining feature is the subterranean place of refuge.
Correct. Or something along those lines. Something that's very akin to that is called a bolt hole. So if I have, and we see a lot of, this is anecdotally, I can't prove this, but the NOAAs seem to be the very rich crowd. So the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, the Peter Thiels of the world, et cetera, that can hop on a private jet, fly to Kauai or fly to New Zealand to their bolt hole. They may not have an underground bunker, but they've got a country.
A bolt hole?
Bolt hole. A bolt hole. It's a place of refuge you can basically bolt to. And It's not quite an actual physical hole, but you bolt to this location and you escape things. So Uruguay, New Zealand, Singapore for some folks, et cetera. But you escape the madness for a while because you have the financial means to do so.
There seems to be a recurring theme and trend amongst these people that it's not just that they're kind of hedging against something that has a one-off chance, that they actually think something bad is going to happen. And maybe, and it's because they're smart and they see the risk, right? They see how vulnerable the system that they've kind of created is, I think.
Right. And for these individuals, again, if you're trading in these dollars and, Silicon Valley and Wall Street, et cetera, a lot of these folks have, government connections, government contracts, et cetera. And so they get, privy to what's behind the curtain as far as classification. And they see these things that, countries are preparing for. What is China preparing for? What is Russia preparing for? What is America preparing for? And they're like, well, holy crap, if governments are spending billions of dollars on these things and the government thinks that they need to do that for continuity of government or continuity of operations, why shouldn't I as well? The biggest critique that I have of these individuals that are NOAAs that are not doing it in a communal sense, that are just kind of saving themselves and their private security team is that they didn't do it the right way. If you're going to bolt hole for a couple of weeks or even a month, or you're going to take off for 3 months because of COVID or whatever, okay, that's more understandable. I don't want to fully, give you 2 thumbs up on that one. But the issue is that they didn't go back the right way and to look at the past. You had kings, you had barons, you had earls back in Europe that had these fiefdoms, that had these castles, etc. But the kings and the earls and the barons, their power was not from the castle. It was from the people that the castle protected. And these high net worth individuals that bolt hole and get away, if they're thinking they're going to last something that's going to go for multi months or multi years with just their personal security attachment of their retired Navy SEALs and their money, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen, because you're going to lose out on, where's your dentist? Where's your orthodontist? Where's your podiatrist? Where's this? I mean, all these different specialties that aren't there. Where's the person, your mechanical engineer, that's going to fix your radiation sensor when it goes down? Blah 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 blah. All these different things. They're not buying into a community. The barons and the earls and the kings had a community to protect them. These Noahs don't. So they might last a little bit. They might last a few more months than the rest of us do if something truly apocalyptic happened, but not much longer than that, unfortunately, because they don't have the community structure. If they wanted to be better, it'd be better for them to go to like Jackson Hole or Idaho or Kansas or whatever and buy into a community that was going to protect them writ large, almost basically like buying into their own fiefdom. That's a better way of doing things. I'm not saying we should have fiefdoms across America, but if you're going to spend billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars on this, there's a better way than doing just a bunker or a bolt hole.
Absolutely. Well, they're probably banking on humanoid robots and AI to do all the specialized work, which I think we're still a few years out from that yet. So we have the NOAAs, and then what is are we on the fourth or the fifth? I can't remember.
We're on the fifth. We're on the final group. So the final group, I didn't call them NOAAs. The NOAAs and the faithful is the last group. They split a little bit. The NOAAs are the ones that are kind of like, they're going to build an ark and they're going to float on it for a while and kind of watch the rest of society go by. The faithful, though, are like, there's nothing we can do. At the end, I'm not saving my skin, I'm saving my soul. And that's the difference right there. The faithful believe that you can survive a bit longer, or you can thrive a bit longer under the Antichrist kingdom or the end of days or whatever it is. But at the end of days is going to come. The actual apocalypse is going to come. There is a supernatural judgment that's going to come by God. And he's going to judge the righteous and the unrighteous and separate them to the right and to the left. And so they are preparing spiritually for their souls. That's the faithful right there.
So do they not actually prep physically at all then? Or is it, because I do have a lot of, very religious viewers. They send me stuff, but they seem to also be preppers. But maybe, I don't know like what their contingencies are. Like,
they are prepping for the end of days. So if you use, for example, Christian eschatology to study the end times, there's going to be a 7-year period of just massive global strife. And so if you're not going to get raptured up at the beginning of that, and you're going to have to last the entire time for the, through the 7 years of tribulation, that they want to have preparedness for that. They don't want to get the mark of the beast to buy and sell food. They want to be able to grow their own stuff. They want to be able to defend themselves, etc. So yes, they are preparing for an end of days here as well, but they know at the end of those days, judgment comes for their souls.